What is the next step in the fiber journey for an obsessed knitter? For many, knitting and crocheting is enough. Then there are those who want to take the craft to the next level, which is designing. When it comes to designing, there are a lot to consider. There are many questions. So today we're talking to an amazing knitwear designer who is really making a big splash in the industry. And today we're going to learn about her journey.
Real Talk with Tian starts now. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Real Talk with Tian podcast. This is a podcast dishing all the dirt on the realities of running a creative business. My name is Tian, and I'm a designer, technical editor, and business coach. See, since leaving corporate almost a decade ago, I've been doing this amazing work full time. It hasn't always been easy, but it has always been totally worth it. Over the years, I've had the amazing opportunities to work with hundreds of makers just like you and tons of big brands. This has given me a front row seat to what it takes to be successful as a creative business. With this podcast, I'm drawing back the curtains to share with you the behind the scenes of the realities of what it's really like, what it takes to run a successful and fulfilling creative business. Welcome to the conversation. Grab a cup of tea or your favorite beverage. It's time for some real talk.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
So before we get to learn more about Rebecca's journey, let's start with some warm-up questions. And these I like to call my swatch questions. These are just 5 rapid-fire questions just to get us warmed up. All right, ready?
Yes, I'm definitely ready.
Okay, great. If you were a yarn, what would you be? Give me the weight, the color, the fiber content of what the yarn you would be.
Okay. I think I would be a fingering weight yarn. I'm definitely someone who is very dreamy and whimsical. And when I think of fingering weight yarn, it immediately makes me think of lace and airiness, and I just, flowing through the winds. I'm definitely all of that kind of put into one.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah. And I feel like it's one of my signature colors. I would probably do like a teal. I just love the way that looks. It's got a freshness to it that I just love.
Okay, what about fiber content?
Fiber content, I would say cotton. It's kind of for the same reasons. It's really that like nice, whimsical yarn content that you don't always think of. That's great to knit with. I love the way it feels when I'm knitting with it. And I love spring and summer. So it's just like that perfect content.
Perfect. So what is your favorite size hook or needle to work with?
I love working with size 6 needles, which seems very random. Like, how did I get there? But again, it's kind of that like, I think it's a size needle that we sometimes don't think about using too often that gives you, it works up faster than you realize, but also gives you that stitch definition that I just love. So it really is about detailing, but I don't like spending too much time on a project. So I like it to work up a little bit faster if possible.
Next question. If you were going to be away from your stash for a while, say a month, and there's no yarn store around, what's one yarn or type of project would you bring?
Yeah, this one was a hard question. I couldn't decide. I went back and forth, but I did decide that I would do some sort of shawl pattern because I like that I don't want something too big so it's easy to travel with. And I feel like a shawl is like that perfect in between, but you need it to last you a while. So socks would have to be out for me. And I really am in love with Threadhead Knits Co., her yarn that she dyes, because it's just so vibrant and she just has the most amazing color combinations and speckles. And she has a yarn right now called Handwritten. I think it was a collaboration with her husband and maybe her daughter that all made it together, which I think is just really sweet. And it kind of has like those beautiful color combinations and speckles. So I would definitely bring that to make my shawl.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Okay, next question. One pattern you can make or have made over and over again.
One pattern I would make over and over again. I feel like I recently thought, oh, I would make this pattern again and again. About something I'm working on. That's hard
Or
for me.
or are you the type of knitter or crocheter that would make a project over and over again?
I was just thinking that I'm kind of not that person. I think that I just find it too tedious. I very rarely will make a pattern again. There is a sock pattern. It's just a plain vanilla sock pattern that I have done that over and over again. And that doesn't bother me. I think because it's small and you don't have to think too hard, which I really enjoy. But other than that, I find it a bit of a struggle to make another one of a design. And that's my own designs or anyone else's design, just because I don't have the patience.
So if you were making a second version of a pattern, would you modify it? Is that what would happen?
Sometimes that is what happens. I'm making it and I'm thinking I'm almost done with it as is. And I'm thinking, man, I wish I had done this instead. Maybe I should go back and make another version. And then I'm thinking, that's a lot of work. Maybe you need to slow down and you just take a pause. So yeah, I think it's because I'm a perfectionist. So I always want to change things, even though it's fine the way it is. And most people love it the way it is. So I have to stop myself and say, no, don't change it. People love it this way. Just leave it alone for now and, revisit it again later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the hard parts of being a designer. It's just, all right, well, if I make it again, I couldn't modify it, but it would be a completely different project.
Yes.
Or
And
a
that's,
completely different design.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the struggle. So I have to stop myself and be like, no, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Just make it as is. It's very lovely. Although I will say, I do enjoy making the aperture caldana. I made a second one of those and that went really fast. And I do like that pattern a lot. I was surprised that I like making multiples of those.
Oh, great. All right. The next question. What's in your project bag right now?
I am someone who has a lot of project bags and has a lot of projects. I was like, oh, do they want me to list them all? Because there's a lot.
We won't air your dirty laundry, so.
But one that I'm consistently working on is my wool and honey sweater, the Andrea Mowry design. That's been still in my bag for a long time. I do have a bulky weight cardigan that I'm making as a gift for someone, and that design is by a good friend of mine who's a designer, Lovely by Lee. And it's just a simple, great, well-written pattern, lots of modifications if you want to do them. And if you don't, then, it's very easy to keep it as is. And I have a couple secret patterns. I feel like that's the hardest part. I have a lot of patterns that I'm working on, but it looks like I'm not working on anything because I can't share with anybody yet.
The struggle is real, guys. It's real.
Yeah.
So I have one bonus question for you because I think a lot of us want to know what's on your nightstand. What are you reading right now?
I have a couple books on my nightstand, and I kept going back and forth about which ones to share. Is it okay if I share two of them?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One of them I just finished. It's called The Girl on the Bridge, and it was a murder mystery where there were two people. Well, there was a guy that was murdered, and he was somehow tied to this rape that had happened in college long ago. And so it's kind of like a revenge plot. Like they think someone's trying to seek revenge on the people who were involved in that situation. And that was a pretty good book. I was surprised. And then I also am rereading. I like to reread books. A book that I read a long time ago called, it's a romance book. It's called Nerd in Shining Armor, but it's a good one. It's hard to find romance novels about like dorky guys. So I was like, find those fascinating because my husband's a big nerd. And so that's just, I try to like flip flop, like, okay, murder mystery, kind of depressing. Okay. Light romance. Cool.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'll definitely get these titles in the show notes for anyone interested in picking these up. So love those. Thank you so much for sharing your.
Yeah, you're welcome. I always think I'm a big dork.
Aren't most of us knitters big dorks though?
Yes, we are. That's why I feel like everyone will understand.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of this conversation. So, Rebecca, you're a designer. You haven't been designing for very long. So we want to get to know you a little bit more, get to know your
Hmm.
journey, and we'll just start with some pretty soft questions and we'll see where the conversation takes us. Okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
So so tell me who you are and what do you do?
So I am, well, would you like me, should I state my name again or?
Go for it.
Okay,
Tell me
so
your Ravelry name and Instagram name and anything else you'd like us to know about you.
okay, great. So my name is Rebecca McKenzie, and my Instagram name is Raging Pearlwind, and that is the same for Ravelry. You can find me as Raging Pearlwind on that. I just think that it's two words in Ravelry, and you can even can find me on Facebook. I have the same tag there too, Raging Pearlwind. And I have been a knitwear designer for, I want to say it's now maybe 2 years. It's kind of unclear exactly when I started because I wasn't really doing a great job keeping track. I just kind of was doing things and just started, not really knowing where I was going
Mm-hmm.
exactly. But before that, I was an elementary school teacher for 7 years. I taught third grade for 5 years. And then I was an ESOL teacher for 2 years, which all of those skills I feel like really helped me as a knitwear designer to be organized, to plan out my scheduling, to meet deadlines. So things like that from that job really have carried over and helped me a lot with building my business.
Oh, wow. Did not know that about you.
Yeah,
So what are your pronouns?
just by she, her.
What were you like as a kid? What did you want to do when you grew up? Did you have an idea about that, or were you just kind of like, yeah, I'll just be an adult?
It was a lot like, oh yeah, I just got to get to that goal of being an adult, which is not as glamorous as everyone paints it
Yeah,
as.
it's really not.
But really, as a kid, I told my husband I was weird. Like it's kind of strange to say, but that's how people describe me. Like, oh, you're kind of weird. I said, yeah, I'm weird. I'm okay with it. I like it. I embrace it.
Okay, well, I want to
Um,
know more.
yes. I was just a big dreamer. I always wanted to make things, and in my mind, I just knew I wanted to invent things. That's what I always kind of thought of myself as like, oh, I'm going to invent something. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm going to have to make it with my hands. So I like to, at an early age, I lived in Japan and I learned how to do origami. So I got really into making things out of paper and I would make elaborate things. I was like, what if I constructed this thing out of paper and I made a cash register? So I like made templates and I cut them out and I taped it all together and I made a little drawer you could pull out and it was all made out of paper, which it wasn't very sturdy, but I was still very proud of it. So just like things like that, I also like to dress up as different characters and pretend to be different people. I really enjoyed as a kid the book. It's called Amazing Grace. It's a great children's book. It's about a girl exactly like that, different characters, pretends to be different people. It's actually about a little black girl that wants to be Peter Pan in the school play. So it's a great story about challenging race and challenging gender stereotypes and things like that. That has always stuck with me throughout the years. That I could really be anything I wanted to be.
So you
Um,
were reading this as a kid?
yeah, it was a story that it's a children's book and that is usually like read as a read aloud for kids. So I remember like teachers reading it to me and just loving it. And when I was a teacher, I used to read it to the kids as well because I just thought it brought up such good ideas and great discussion points
Hmm.
that especially in third grade, it's good to start challenging some of the things that they think are written in stone. And that was always one of the books that I would present to them and we'd have great discussions about.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that book. I'll have to get that and read it for myself.
Yeah, it's a great book. The author also made a second one. I never read the second one, but I always love to read the first one and just enjoy the character that was created.
So hearing you talk about when you were a kid and, being a big nerd and being a dreamer and making. How do you see that playing into what you're doing now as a designer?
Um, I'm actually really happy that you asked me to do this podcast because it made me kind of reflect on things, and I realized that all those things that I wanted to do and wanted to be as a kid, are really helping me with the knitwear design and how the knitwear design fits kind of perfectly with all of that. And that I can use my knitwear as a way to tell the stories that I've always had and I've always been building in my head. I mean, I always wanted to be a writer, and I have written some stories here and there, and I've taken a creative writing course in college that I really loved. And, that's still something that I now think could be a possibility of writing a book one day. And just, the knitwear is really just a way for me to express all these ideas and stories and a lot of that creativity that I've built up from being a kid.
So when you say that now that you think that writing is a possibility, is that because of what you've done with knitwear, that you've accomplished so much that now you're thinking maybe anything is possible, or am I missing those points?
No, actually it's exactly like that. Kind of skipping ahead to something I know you want to talk about is advice to give people who are interested in becoming designers. I kind of started changing my inner dialogue when I started thinking about designing from, oh, I can't do that. Oh, they can do that, but I can't do that. Instead, I started asking myself, why not me? Like, what is wrong with me that I can't be that person? It's like, it could be me. And when I started thinking that way, it started opening more possibilities, and I started having more confidence in myself and, trying to apply for more things and saying yes to more things too.
And that's a massive mindset shift to go from I can't to why not me to now that possibilities are opening up to you where you can go apply for, magazine submission, or you can reach out to a publisher, where now it's like, okay, well, I've seen other people do this, so I know it's possible. And if it's possible, why not me?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to dial it back in and stay on track with our questions. No, but that was amazing, because that's one of the things I try to teach when I'm coaching other knitwear designers and tech editors, to think about, if you see someone doing something, that doesn't mean that there's no room for you to do it. That just means that if they can do it, guess what? There's a need for somebody else to do it. There's a need for you to do it. So just think about it that way. So anyone listening, if that's the only advice you could take away from today, just shift your mindset from I can't to why not me.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think I love everything that you do, because it has meant so much to me. I've looked at you as a mentor, and I looked at your career and what you've been able to do for so many years as, well, if she can do it, I could do this. Like, I need to find out what she's doing, and she's someone who's willing to, share their knowledge, then, accept that. And then I keep thinking, well, now I need to share my knowledge with other people. I need to reach back and pull other people along the way and bring them up as well. So I feel like a continued mindset of that is really great for everybody in the community, and helps the community become stronger.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because that's the reason I do what I do, is because when I started, I didn't see a lot of people that look like me or like you doing what we're doing. And I thought that you had to look a certain way to make an impact in this community. And then, over the years, things have been shifting. And I want to show more people, no matter what your background is. I mean, look at me. I'm an immigrant. I came here with nothing. And all that I've been able to achieve, I want to share to other people. If I can do it, heck, anybody can do this. So, so definitely keep pulling people up behind you, and, you'll go further.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, now we're really going to go back to the questions.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
All right, so how did you get started designing, doing what you're doing right now?
Long ago, I've been knitting for a long time. I actually learned to knit when I was around 8 years old from my grandmother. And I kind of knit off and on. In high school, I got really into it again. In college, I was the president of the knitting club and I taught other people how to knit. And I had played with the idea of, oh, maybe I should sell patterns on Ravelry, because that was around the time I want to say I first heard about Ravelry. Was, I want to say, what, 2010 maybe, but I didn't know much about it. And I even was interested, and I sort of started a blog, but it was different times then. I feel like since Instagram came about, everything is completely different. Like Instagram has opened up so many opportunities that weren't available even in 2010, which you think is not that long ago, but
A decade
it's
ago.
about, yeah, a decade ago now. So it is a long time ago. So when I had my daughter is now 2 years old. So about 2 years old, 2 years ago, I was on maternity leave, taking care of my daughter, loving that and enjoying that. Had a lot of insomnia because after nighttime feedings, I'd just be up wandering the house. My husband would say I'd be haunting the house. It's like you could just hear me clanking around doing things and I just be awake. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start trying to do something to relax me. And I was like, oh, I'll get back into my knitting. I haven't, I've off and on been into that. And then I kind of just wandered down the rabbit hole and started saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to make a sweater. I've never done that before. That'll be fun. And of course, I didn't have to do it the easy way. I was like, yeah, it's going to be a custom sweater. So I went online and I read all these blog posts and I was like, oh, yeah. And then I'll figure out how to do shaping and this and that. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know. Like everybody does for their first sweater they've ever made. And it was a lot of fun. I had such a good time doing it and I learned so much doing it. And then from there, I was like, I know I'm smart enough and I really should I always have all these creative ideas. And, even way back when I used to make a lot of my own patterns myself, just a little piece of paper and writing it down. And so I decided that I would actually take the big leap and post to Ravelry and try to see if anyone was interested in it. And then, see if anyone would pay for it. I sold myself, even if one person paid for it, that would be enough for me to start. That would make me feel good. Like, oh my God, one person bought my pattern. And that's still kind of my goal. I still feel like to set the bar a little low for myself so that I feel like it's about that one person. That one person means so much to me that they liked my pattern enough to buy it and want to make it themselves. And I try to think of kind of in smaller terms just to keep things in perspective, that means a lot to me. Yeah, so kind of momsomnia is why I started designing. I could not sleep. Still have that problem. My husband's like, you don't sleep. I was like, yeah, I know. It happens. I'll eventually catch up.
So are you a full-time knitwear designer or are you more of a mom that designs on the side?
Yeah, right now it is more of stay-at-home mom, and I design in the other hours I can find. So I will wake up before my daughter gets up, about 2 hours before, and that's what I'll do a lot of my work. And then during the day, I try not to do any knitwear design work or at least math work because this is way too hard. But I will do some knitting if I can find the time. If that's getting more difficult as my daughter's getting older and she's like, Mommy, put the knitting down. So, and I listen to her because the whole point is I want to be able to have this time with her, and stay home with her as long as I can. And then, when she takes a nap, I'll get some work done. And after she goes to bed, I get more work done. So that I have to find those hours for myself, in between watching my daughter all day, which is nice. I've always wanted to have kind of like a work from home job that allowed me more time with my daughter and my family. And I really love that knitwear designing can afford me that right now.
Yeah.
We'll be back to the episode in literally 90 seconds. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsors. This episode of the Real Talk with Tian podcast is brought to you by possibly the most important training for crochet and knitwear designers and tech editors. Pattern Graded Made Easy, Learn to Grade Like a Pro, Self-Study. This course has helped hundreds of designers and tech editors learn the skills to level up and create patterns that are size inclusive. When we're talking about making designs bigger, it's not just about making the numbers larger. It's about the proportions and considerations of the bodies the designs will fit. I've been there, struggling to figure out pattern grading and how it all worked, figuring out the formula. With the years under my belt as a renowned designer and sought after tech editor, I'm sharing all I know so you can avoid all the trials and error and start creating patterns that are size inclusive. So if you don't want to be that designer, you know the ones who think adding more sizing to their sweater pattern is too hard and too expensive, they don't value all bodies, and God forbid, they'll be promoting obesity. Oh, clutching my pearls. If you're ready to create patterns that are focused on every body, then join Pattern Grading Made Easy Self-Study and start grading like a pro. For more information, go to bit.ly/pattern grading self-study. Again, that's bit.ly/pattern grading self-study. Now let's get back to the show.
So what does work look like? So you're working around your daughter's schedule, so what does work look like for you as a knitwear designer?
It is, I feel like I've evolved a lot in my process. As a teacher, you have to kind of create your own schedule in that way. There is some okay, here's this block of time of you've got to teach language arts during this time, but you get to create, when am I going to do my read aloud? When am I going to do centers with the kids? So that kind of mentality has really helped me with planning out those couple hours that I do have. So I try to create a little every day, write down. Actually, at the beginning of the week, I make little checklists for each day throughout the week and try to spread it out so it doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Okay.
And that if I miss something, I have some wiggle room to push it to the next day or the next week if I need to. And it really is just small checklists of, okay, I need to get this task done and this task done. So when I wake up every morning, I already have that written in my agenda that I have. And then it's not me being all over the place as much and I'm more focused.
So give me an idea of what one of these tasks might be.
One of the tasks might be when I'm starting a design, I will take time to think about the overall theme. So if there's the theme of winter, I will think of, okay, well, what makes me think of winter? And then I'll go on maybe Pinterest and kind of just look at photograph images and find some, and I'll pin them to a board that'll be kind of my mood board for my design. And then from there, I will try and spend time writing like a storyline to go with it. Like if I'm thinking of winter and I'm thinking of maybe the beautiful forests and walking through the forest, then my storyline will be like a story of walking through the forest and things I would see or how it felt or how, the crisp cold air, things like that. So it kind of gets to bring in some of my writing skills, which I really enjoy. And then from there, my next task would be, okay, now I'm going to go through my stitch dictionaries and look up different stitches that kind of, invoke that same feeling and mood that I created. And then from there, it becomes even more steps of this part I kind of keep going around like, oh, do I want to just start with numbers some first? Or do I want to just write for one size and then move to grading the pattern? So that I'm still working out. But a lot of the times I like to handwrite the first round for my own size, adjusting things as I go along. And then after that, going into pattern grading and using Excel spreadsheet. And then playing around with that back and forth. So my tasks went to being a lot of that. And then sometimes just marketing and promoting, creating stories. I try to plan ahead for stories that I put up that are going to be advertising stories as opposed to just my fun loving everyday stories. And trying a little bit better to also plan ahead just the photos of some of the things I want to post to Instagram, not necessarily the captions yet, because that I feel like is still a very personal thing for me. But at least, planning days to take photos and save them at a certain spot. So just little tasks like that, which you don't always think of until much later. But
yeah, so I'm really glad that you touched on the marketing and promotion side, because I think a lot of new designers, they think about oh, I want to be a designer, so I'm going to play with yarn all day. I'm going to knit, I'm going to design. But there's a lot more that goes into making somewhat of a living from being a designer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a lot more work that goes into marketing and promotion and even into the actual creation of the pattern. And that's what I
Yes.
found for myself over the years. Putting out the pattern into the world takes a lot of work that I think a lot of us don't think about when we're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not something that we learn in school at all.
Yeah, yeah,
We're just thinking if we build it, if we put this thing out, people will love it and they will buy it. But if they
yeah,
don't see it, if you don't have that visual for them to come to you to purchase it, then it doesn't really work. So I'm
yeah,
glad
I
you brought that
agree.
up as part of your workflow of what you're doing on a daily basis, because that is actually a major part of being a designer and trying to make a living. So thank
Yeah,
you for
I
sharing that.
agree. Yeah, no problem.
So what would you be doing right now if you weren't a knitwear designer and a mom?
Um, I would probably still be teaching. I love teaching elementary school. Um, I really loved being an ESOL teacher. It was a little different than being a classroom teacher. I got to work with different grade levels as an ESOL teacher in small groups with just kids who were either first learning English or they had a lot of the social English to be able to talk to their friends and, have conversations with people, but they were still struggling with now learning more academic language in English. So I really enjoyed that job a lot. And I learned so much doing that. And teaching, you just learn so much. It's a very exhausting yet rewarding job that anyone who does it is just incredible. I really believe that. It's a great job. But I am happy that I'm staying home with my daughter because that's always something I've wanted to do. And spending time with her and being able to have like 100% of myself focused on her, which is really hard being a teacher. It's
Mm-hmm.
just your brain is mentally drained. So I couldn't imagine, coming home and trying to take care of my daughter at the same time. So I applaud all those moms that teach and come home and find time for their family. But that's probably what I would still be doing. I really think about teaching a lot. I feel like teaching is one of those things you never stop thinking about. I still have teacher dreams, which I thought was pretty strange, but it's just, I don't know. I don't think people understand how big of like teaching is just like an inner thing that just can't leave you. Um, and it is kind of like a calling. So I feel like eventually I probably will go back to teaching, but we'll
But
see.
you're
I'm enjoying
really,
knitwear right now.
yeah, but you're incorporating a lot of those teaching skills in your designs and how you're presenting your pattern and how they're written and explained. And as someone
Mm-hmm.
who's tech edited your patterns, I've seen your writing skills in how you've written up the description for your pattern.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I can see your teaching skills from the way that you write out your instruction. They're so clear. I didn't know you were a teacher before, but now it all clicks. It all
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that I am still planning in my mind ways to bring my knitting to working with kids because I think that's what I miss. I miss the working with kids. I miss that aha moment and that, feeling they get when you can see they're proud of themselves and that they see their own success. And I just enjoy the innocence of children too, because they just think in the funniest ways and they point things out to you. You're like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but that's not exactly what we were going for. It just makes you laugh at adults. A good example is my daughter was looking at one of those little like ABC things and the word was supposed to be X. It was X and it's supposed to be X-ray. So they have a little teddy bear and the X-ray machine.
uh,
And so her uncle was like, oh, what is it? She said, teddy bear. I mean, she's not wrong. It is a teddy bear in there.
yeah, you have a picture of a teddy bear.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I just love stuff like that. Moments like that just make me laugh. It's like, it's just so funny. I mean, they point out just the silliest things that we as adults think we're like, how could they not get that right?
They're seeing it from a whole different perspective that we, with our adult eyes, living in adulthood, it just don't see like the interesting things that they can see.
Yes. I agree. I miss that a lot. And I do get that with my daughter, which is great. But it's a little different when you're teaching and supporting a kid with their learning and helping them feel confident. I just really enjoy that as well.
Right, right. And I get that. Okay, so if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, knowing everything you know now, what would you tell her? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self, I would tell my 18-year-old self that you don't have to pick one thing for your career and then that's it. And that's the end. I really had that idea set in my head, and that's how I approached going to college and choosing my career. And, it, for someone, especially being a kid, I dreamt of doing everything and had all these ideas. And I thought, oh gosh, how am I supposed to just choose one? Then I would tell my 18-year-old self, you don't have to choose one. You thought you had to, but you don't actually. You could figure out ways to do all of them. And
Yeah.
thinking of your life more as chapters, like chapter 1 is going to look very different than chapter 2. Like you could have, right now I'm knitwear designing and doing all these things, but chapter 2 could be, maybe I'm writing that book I've been talking about, and maybe I'm an author. So it's just thinking of your life can be a lot of possibilities, and it doesn't just have to be you pick that career, you do it, and you're done.
Yeah, and I like that metaphor of using, chapters of a book, because when you think about it that way, you're thinking chapter 1 isn't completely done, but it's leading up to chapter 2 that builds off of chapter 1. So each new chapter is really building off of what you've learned in the previous chapters. Where, like you, I was told, you go to college, you get a job, and as an immigrant, there's only a handful of jobs you can have: nurse, doctor, lawyer, engineer, and that was it. Knitwear was never anything that was even in my horizon.
Yeah.
So guess what? I don't think my parents even understand what I do right now.
Yes, I find that people don't understand what I'm doing, and I try to explain it to them, and it's just like, never mind.
It's not even worth it sometimes.
Like, I don't think you understand. Like, people kind of know who I am. Like, it's different now.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that advice to your 18-year-old self. It doesn't have to be just one thing. You can just be all those things, and it could just be chapters that lead into another chapter that leads into another chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there a question I didn't ask that you thought I should have asked you?
I had thought about maybe if I could have a chance to explain kind of the vision I have for my company, for Raging Crowin, and what it's really all about. I would love
Definitely
to share that with the audience. For me, the beginning of Raging Crowin was all about how really when I'm knitting, it is like being in the zone. I really feel like there's all these things sometimes, stressors and, appointments and all these things kind of swirling around me. But when I'm knitting, I can be calm in this like storm, like kind of the eye of the storm. So that's kind of where I came up with the idea of Raging Crowin. And also that I want that for other people. I want their knitting and their crafting to be that calm in their life that they need, and also to find meaning in what they're doing. So I try to kind of have like a universal theme with my designs that kind of relate to people, so they feel like they're connected to their knitting in a way, like choosing the yarn that you have and choosing the particular design, and all of it really can bring a lot of meaning and create great memories for you. Because I am currently working on my wool and honey sweater. It's been about 2 years me working on it, but I have just like all this warm memories about it. I brought it to my trip to Rhinebeck, and I worked on a few rows there, and I had a good time picking out what yarn color I wanted, and that was important to me. And just everywhere I get to take it is really enjoyable. I've taken it to a couple trips to like the hospital to help my mom out a few times. So just knowing that your knitting can actually become a part of your memories, and that it's not always about the finished product. Sometimes the process is just as exciting and wonderful and meaningful. And yeah, that's what I want everyone to have and experience. And that's why I started Raging Whirlwind.
That is so beautiful, because I think that as someone who's seen your work, I can definitely see exactly what you're talking about. And if anyone has not seen your work, they need to run out right now and go check it out, because that's exactly as you're saying it. I'm like, oh yeah, that is exactly what I see when I see your work. So
thank you. I appreciate
for
that.
bringing that up. So we're going to wrap up, and this has been an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you.
So tell us what's coming up next, and where can the listeners find you?
Okay, I have a couple things coming up. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you can find me on Instagram at Raging Whirlwind, and it's all one word. And on Facebook, it's Raging Whirlwind. Raging and Whirlwind are 2 words. And the same for that's about it, actually. I'm just on Facebook and Instagram right now. I'm trying to expand it to a website. That hasn't happened yet. That's coming eventually. But I am the designer for Lady Di Yarn's January yarn club called Winterpalooza. And that is going to get released this coming January 2020. So look out for that if you'd like to sign up for it. I would love that. I'm really excited about the design. It's a secret design right now, but I think it's coming out beautifully. I also will be attending Vogue Knitting Live in New York City this coming January as well. I think that might be January 17th. I should be there for most of the weekend, so I'd love to see people and talk to people. That's probably my favorite part, just getting to know people who are knitters, crocheters, want to be designers, have knit my patterns, have not knit my patterns. I just love talking to people. And I have some other collaborations coming. Some of them are secret, but one of them I can talk about. I applied for the Fiber Company's yarn support program, and I was accepted, which I'm really excited about. So now I'll be doing a wonderful cardigan design for them. And I'm really excited about that. That was one of those moments that I was like, oh, should I apply for this? I'm not going to get this. And I applied, did my best work, and I got it. Shocker.
Shocker, right?
But again, it was one of those things like, well, why not me? Why can't it be me? It could be me. I could see myself here.
Yeah, why not?
So I'm really excited about that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for taking the time to come on here and share your story, which has been an amazing story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I was very excited and definitely flattered that you thought of me. And I always love chatting with you, and I admire everything that you do so much, especially this podcast. I just want to applaud you all the time about it and everything that you post. I hope everyone's following you on Instagram, because everything you say is truth, and it's the kindest truth. It's like talking to your best friend. Your best friend's like, yeah, you shouldn't do that.
You should do it.
You should do this.
If you're in any doubt, you should do it. Just follow me on Instagram, and I will just tell you to just go do it. Because why not?
Yeah, I agree. Everything that you're posting is exactly what people need to hear, and exactly what they need if they're interested in designing and feeling confident about themselves.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the podcast all the way to the end. Everything we mentioned will be listed in the show notes at tianconaughton.com/realtalkwithtian. If you have questions on anything I've mentioned, or if you just want to book a coaching session, go to tianconaughton.com/contact-us to get in touch. You got this.